Another review for you from Everyday Tactical Vids. It's Tim, and today we're looking at the Gerber Back Paxe 2. This item is going to run you between $30 and $42 to $45 depending on where you get it. The reason I got a hold of this was because I wanted to contrast an axe in a survival situation with a folding saw. If you know anything about camping or you've been in the woods much, there's some people who swear by a saw as far as, cutting larger items, something that a knife won't easily do, and some people swear by an axe. So I wanted to look at both those. Been very happy with the Corona saw so far, but today we're going to focus on the Gerber Back Paxe 2. To give you some of the details about it, it is, as you can see, made by Fiskars, based out of Finland. On the back, some of the details here: overall length 8.9 inches, your blade length 2.7, and your weight is 17 ounces. Another interesting detail to give you, again, about 8.9, so 9 inches long, but they want you 10 yards or 30 feet away from anybody operating it. So be very, 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 very careful. Okay, couple details as far as what it feels like, even just still in the package. Even though it's got this plastic around it, you can tell that it's going to be top heavy because of the blade and because it's hollow inside. Gerber does make another axe like this. It's got that kind of gatorized texture on it, and it has a small knife that slides and locks into the bottom of the handle. It's about a paring knife size, so I thought I don't really need that small knife, and I didn't want the chance of it falling out, me losing it, so I went with this one instead. We're going to take it out of the packing now and look at it up close and personal, as I like to always do, and then we'll get it outside and see how it actually works. A few things to note here. There's a hole at the end of the handle, so if you want to run some paracord through there for some sort of tether. Looking at the back here, definitely made for hammering in tent stakes or using for other kind of hammering purposes. Give you a look here at the handle. Flip it around the other side. It's just a warning sticker that you can take off. That's the back. Here's your blade. It does come quite sharp for an axe, so be careful as you are handling it. The blade is 55 HRC, and they say that the handle is a fiber composite, and between the blade and the handle they say it's supposed to be balanced. It definitely is still top heavy, which makes sense because it's going to be so light in the handle and then heavier in the head of the axe. So just be aware of that. Looking at the top here, you can see you've got some seam lines where the handle comes over the top to hold the head of the axe into place. So we'll just keep an eye on that as we use it to see if there's any wear there when we get it outside and test it out. Alright, enough here in the studio. Let's get outside and test the Gerber Back Paxe 2. Out in the field, continuing our review now. A couple things I'll mention. You can carry your axe in this kind of piece of plastic that they use to hang it and display it in your average store. It does take up a lot of space. I mean, if you look at the size of the handle of the axe and this, I mean, you're almost equal in size, so a lot of space being taken up here. If you can take it out of this piece of plastic and find a way to keep the blade covered safely, obviously that'll be an easier way. Not necessarily lighter, because that's pretty light, but just take up less space in your pack or whatever it is that you're however it is you're carrying this. So our first test is going to be to go over to this tree here and actually use it as an axe, and then we'll work on using the backside to see how well it drives, a stake into the ground or something like that. As you can see behind me, it does cut quite well. Some things worth noting first is that because of the small size, you got to be careful that you don't end up whacking your hand against the tree or the log, whatever you're using to cut. It is obviously, as I mentioned, top heavy because the blade is heavy and then the rest of it's very lightweight. So just be careful it doesn't come flying out of your hand. If this was textured a little bit here, that'll be a little bit better for grip. So there may be some way you want to actually texture your handle or add something on that's got a little bit more grip on it. Other than that, though, this is what the blade came like right from the store, or right from the factory, I should say. So quite sharp. Didn't have to put in a ton of effort to cut this. This is wet pine behind me, so it's not the hardest wood, but now we'll actually make a stake out of wood, put a point on it, and work on driving it into the ground. I'll show you what that function looks like as far as using the back of the hammer, the back of the axe here. A quick note here, I was working on shaving this piece of cedar branch down to something that's got a point so I can use it as essentially a stake if I was to drive some sort of stake into the ground for my shelter. And the nice thing about the size of this axe is that you can kind of use it to shave down like this, as you can see. I did this without. I basically found this piece of cedar as is, and obviously I'm making it a little too thin now, but just to show you, you can use the axe with that kind of method to cut things as well. I've got my cedar stake here, essentially. This could be used for a variety of different things. If you have a metal stake, obviously that's more solid, but just imagine yourself in a survival situation where you need to make some sort of stake to put into the ground to set up your shelter, whatever it might be. So I made this, and then we're going to test out the back of the axe here, see how well it works to drive this in. Now, I will note that the cedar does have a crack down the side, so normally I would find a better piece of wood, but this is what was available, and I want to get really working on this review and get it out for you guys. So we'll test this out to see how it works overall, all right? So there you go. Obviously it works quite well to drive that. You can see that I'm a little bit hesitant to really take a big swing because of, basically I have one fist length, and then I'm going to be bumping my fingers, so I don't want to swing it and miss and really rail my hand on this. So, these little swings like that to drive it in does seem to work quite well. All right, a couple final thoughts on this axe from Gerber. First thing I'll say is that my main concern was how is the head of the axe attached to the handle. You can see there's some seam lines up here on the top, and it looks like what they did in the factory was basically take the head of the axe and mold the top of the handle around it. It does seem quite secure. I have beat it up a little bit and it's still holding on quite tight, no movement at all in the head of the axe. I will also note that if you shine a very bright flashlight inside, it's really hard to get on camera, but it looks like there's two bolts that come out of the head of the axe and go down into the handle, and then they're secured up and underneath. It's not something you could tighten on your own. It looks like it's something that was done in the factory, but that does give me even more confidence that it is gonna stay in place. As far as its sharpness from the factory, it is quite sharp. As you saw, it does cut well. It will, drive a stake well. I think this would work fine on something even more sturdy than my cedar stake, and if you had to use it on metal. Long term, obviously, we'd have to use it for a while and see how that holds up. The length of it, because it is so compact, great for putting in your backpack, your bailout bag, whatever it might be. Want to get something to cover up that blade, making sure you're not cutting yourself or your stuff in your kit. The other thing to note is because it is so compact that, big swings like this, you got to be careful that you don't miss and end up really railing your hand against something. So overall, at this point, quite happy with this. If you need an axe that's compact, can fit in your car, fit in your bailout bag, your camping gear, survival bag, this could be a really great option for not a ton of money. You're getting quite a good little axe. Now, as always, with all the gear that we review on Everyday Tactical Vids, we'll give you an update if there are any things that are really great about it or really bad about it. So long-term use to be determined, but at this point, we're giving a thumbs up to the Gerber Back Paxe. Quite a impressive little item from our friends over at Gerber. As always, guys, thanks for checking out the video. Please subscribe, like, and we'll see you soon.